Hey everybody, this is Jason Alba for a special recording with my friend Dan Appleman out of where, California?
San Jose, California.
San Jose. I've heard of San Jose. It's
The Bay
famous
Area.
for something, I think.
Silicon Valley.
No, I love San Jose. When I come out and speak in the Bay Area, I've found that my best speaking is in East Bay and Silicon Valley. A lot of fun thinkers out there. I bet you can just have fun conversations all the time.
We really live in our own universe here. It's a different culture, and it's everyone outside of Silicon Valley agrees that you guys live in your own universe. So anyways, so what we want to talk about today is based on conversations that Dan and I have had offline, and the courses that we've created, which really goes into a lot about our careers and what's happening generally with our careers, but especially right now, right? Yeah. So we're in a weird time. And nobody knows what's going to happen after this, or how long it's going to take to happen, or what's going to be the outcome of this, right? It's very unsettling. You're starting to hear this term, the new normal. And I think people are either using it or misinterpreting it. I don't want to say wrong, but they're not appreciating what that really means. I think people think the new normal means, well, we're going to wear face masks, or we're going to socially isolate for 12 to 18 months, and that's the new normal. And I think that misses the point. When we think, when in my courses, I think about the future and that's what we do. We're trying to predict what should we study? What should we learn? What is the future going to be like? There are things we know and there are things we don't know. And I always like to start with the things we know. Right now, we don't know what the economy is going to do. Right now, we don't know the path of the pandemic. So, we can speculate, but nobody knows. And the proof of that is that all you have to do is go to a website and you will see experts with radically different opinions, right? On the same page, you'll see an article on any finance site that says the stock market's going to drop 50%. And other people saying, now's the time to buy because or you'll miss the rally.
Yeah,
right. And that is proof that nobody has a clue. So we don't know those things. But there are some things we know that people are not really talking about yet that have a huge impact on the future of technology. For example, let me give you an example that's non-tech first, because it's one that we all live with. Restaurants, right? Restaurants have been damaged enormously. And we know that at some point there will be the shelter in place will be lifted and restaurants will return. Will things be back to normal? They will not be back to normal. And there's a reason for that. We have all sheltered in place. Hundreds of millions of people have sheltered in place, and a lot of them have learned to cook. And a lot of them like it, right? I volunteer with a teen youth group. They're cooking.
Yeah.
Right? So what happens in a world where a significant percent of people who never cooked before now cook and like it, and they see the economics of it? That goes forever. That's a generational shift. That's a permanent shift. Right? And especially as Pluralsight authors, that's sort of the key question. What if people learned? Here's another example. This is the big one. Working from home. We just did a massive nationwide, worldwide experiment of the vast majority of tech people in particular have now experienced working from home. Now, at the beginning, everyone said working from home is hard.
Yep.
Working from home is hard. We all know working from home is hard. What does that mean? If it's new, it's hard. Anything you do for the first time is hard.
Learning curve.
But everybody will have spent probably 2 or 3 months working from home. And you know what? It's not as hard. They've adapted. They've learned new skills.
Well, plus now I don't have to commute 2 hours a day. So what I lose out on my podcast time but all my costs have gone down. I don't have to wake up as early. I don't have to worry about my wardrobe. Frankly, I don't. I mean, holy cow, working from home is amazing. I've been doing it since 2000 something.
I've been doing it since 1991 with various breaks, because I've had offices, but even when I've had offices, I wouldn't go in all the time, or I'd go in late and so on. So now you start thinking about what are the consequences of that, right? Managers are learning to manage virtual teams.
Yep.
Now, if I am a manager, if I'm an executive, and I take a look and I say, okay, hold on a minute. What if going forward, I let people work at home, or I set it up so that everybody works at home, or those willing to, 2 or 3 days a week? Will that impact my productivity? Will that impact my costs? Okay.
And employee satisfaction, which is a huge thing. So part of culture.
I may not have to build a building. That's a huge cost savings, right? My cafeteria, my food costs have gone down, right? My travel costs have gone down. So there's some economic incentive, not just for people who suddenly like it and don't have to commute and waste that time, but for companies as well, right? And then there's societal benefits, right? Here in the Bay Area, we have bad traffic. Right now, we have great traffic, right? What are the societal benefits for pulling, 20%, because this is a tech area, so 20% easy cars off the road? Everybody wins, and we have cleaner air. So the fact that millions of tech workers now have experienced a significant amount of time working from home, a real percentage of those are going to like it. Going to want to do it. And that is, again, a learning that goes forever. That's permanent shift. So now, what does that mean for technology? I think we're going to have a true virtual revolution. I think I wrote an article recently about Dreamforce, the big tech conference Salesforce is having. And this was before they announced it was going to be reimagined. We don't know what they're going to do yet. And I said, you know what? Conferences right now, to date, they've been doing, Zooms. They've been doing webinars. That's not a conference. You don't go to conference to sit in the rooms and watch stuff. We go to conferences to wander around, to interact, visit booths, meet friends. That's what we go to conferences for. So how do you recreate that kind of engaging experience online, right? Well, the answer is right in front of us. Gamers do it every day, right? Massive multiplayer online games, Warcraft, Fortnite, Animal Crossing. We actually know we have the technology to build rich virtual worlds that you can wander around with and interact and meet people and talk and so on. It is inevitable, absolutely inevitable, that people will build conferences like that.
Well, I mean, we're going back 15 or 20 years when, what was that? What, was it Second Life? What
Second
was that
Life.
one?
Yeah.
Like that was going to revolutionize everything.
Yeah.
And here we are in 2020 revisiting the whole concept of virtual networking and virtual socializing.
It was probably a little ahead of its time, but it was the prototype that proved, right? And it had an economy that crossed over to the real world economy too. So
it was ahead of its time for sure.
Right. But I think the pandemic is going to trigger the disruption, right? Something that was going to happen anyway. I mean, you've seen Ready Player One by any chance?
Yeah.
Okay. The Oasis, right? That is the future. Hopefully without the dystopian elements.
Right? Yeah, right.
Because in that book, the real world was terrible and everyone escaped the Oasis. Hopefully we will not have the dystopian real world, but we will create a hybrid world where both of them are good and build on each other. But that was inevitable. The pandemic
And what's happened here is going to be, I think, the trigger, the shot of adrenaline that's going to drive it forward and make it the time for these things. So
this has been a huge trigger, like, and it's touching even the youngest of kids, who, like the kindergartners, who are learning what virtual meetings are, right? Like, they might have seen their parents shush them, and now they're the ones in the meetings saying, "Hey, be quiet, I'm on a call," you know?
And you know what? You just picked the second area, again, where I'm looking at tech careers and future development. Education to date has not been disrupted. It really has not. Not the way
it was a sacred cow. It's been a sacred cow, really.
Right. And we have just proven that it can work. It's not great yet, but again, the technology is primitive. But the consequences of this are going to be far-reaching. A certain percentage of parents who never occurred to them to homeschool are suddenly going to say, hey, you know, it was really tough the first week or two, but we're figuring this out.
Yeah. Or it was really tough when the school district told me how to do it, but I've learned that there's other ways. I mean, that what people are doing from the school district isn't homeschooling. My family homeschools. We have 2 kids that have come home from the junior high and high school, right? Mm-hmm. And the biggest complaint that I'm seeing right now about this shifting education to home, first of all, everybody's saying it's homeschool, and it's not. But the biggest complaint I'm seeing is that my kids are schooling from morning till night, and they can't catch up because the teachers are like, well, if I'm not seeing your eyeballs in the classroom, I want to make sure that you're getting education. So here's 5 hours of homework to do today. And everybody's going nuts.
Right. So, and hopefully people are going to open their eyes, right? And we're going to see more and more technology and more people basically saying, no, here's how to do it right, and here's how to do it better. And some of these parents, and not all, it's going to be slow still, but it's now credible. It's now legit, right? And I think you're going to see some parents, and it's going to increase, saying, you know what, I can do this, but how can I do it better? Mm-hmm. Right? And how can it be done better? And now and there are going to be some parents who say, my kids are not doing well in school, or my schools are not safe, or my teachers, the district's teachers are terrible, or so on. I've already done something online. What's better? How can I do it better? How can I do it right? And on the college level, right? This, I think, has the potential to be a hugely disruptive change, because if a college can educate people remotely, right, then why can't they scale it? So instead of having 1,000 students that are paying ridiculous amounts of money and taking on huge student loans, that same university can educate 50,000 students at a fraction of the price, and they're still going to do fine. Yeah. Right. And now you're getting what Pluralsight's pioneered, the democratization of technology, the democratization of education. I think we finally going, this is going to be the instigator, the tipping point that's going to drive more rapid change in that area.
So this is very exciting. This is really exciting, but what about the 30 million people that have filed for unemployment, the companies that are shutting down? Like, my target companies don't even exist anymore. They have shut their doors, or they've declared they're shutting their doors. So there's a lot of people, as exciting as this is, and I think you and I can sit back with this perspective and are like, yeah, we've been thinking and talking about this for a long time, and we see things playing out, and we see how things can go in the long run. But man, there's a lot of people freaked out right now. What would you say to them?
So I'm going to answer that, but first of all, I want to challenge the assumption that we in tech are not freaking out. Rather, I would say we are in a constant state of freaking out.
That's true.
And the reason we're in a constant, and that's because we are, more than any other career, accustomed to the idea that everything we know is going to be obsolete within a matter of months or years at the most.
Yeah.
So it's not that we don't experience sudden disruptive change. It's more like we're used to it, right? So, anyone in tech, everyone in tech knows that you have to learn constantly or it's game over. And what's happening now is these 30 million people who are unemployed are coming into that reality. So we actually know this. This is not alien to us. We're trained for it. We're used to it. So what do you do? So the first thing you do, I actually talk about this in I think a couple of my courses, right? What do you do when bang, it's hit? You've hit a recession, everything. The first thing you do is take some deep breaths, take care of yourself, right? And face the reality of it, right? If you have a lower income, you cut costs right away. You have to face the reality of it. And the second is you have to look around and say, okay, where are the opportunities? So for example, the restaurant workers, devastating. A bunch of them are laid off. The DoorDashes and the supermarket delivery are hiring like crazy, right? And those are not jobs that necessarily pay worse than the restaurant jobs did.
Yeah,
so
and there could be tips involved.
Absolutely, there are tips involved. So where are the jobs? And this is something I talk about a lot in my courses, in Hidden Secrets of Technology Careers, Career and Survival Strategies. People in tech, we tend to obsess over what's popular. Oh, I got to learn, JavaScript. I got to learn full stack. I got to learn Angular because that's what's popular. If something is popular, it means that there's a lot of supply. There might be demand also, but there's a lot of supply. So, where's it going to balance out? The real place to look at is who's hiring and what are they hiring for? So for a long time, and again, I want to be very cautious about right now because things are changing quickly, but for the past few years, I've been involved in Salesforce. And I've been telling people, tech people, say, look at Salesforce. Why should you look at Salesforce? Because it's unpopular. Because a lot of tech people dismiss it. They say, I hate working on the platform. It's primitive. They have all kinds of things to say about it. Meanwhile, every large corporation is hiring Salesforce admins and Salesforce developers. The demand has been huge for people.
And they're making good money.
Oh, yeah.
It's not like they're the stepchild of technology.
No. The money, you want to see one of the top five. You look for a Salesforce certified technical architect. You're not going to find anyone in tech who's making more than those people are, right? Salesforce developers is great. Again, the recessions happen. I'm not going to speak. We don't know what's going to happen in that field or any other field specifically right now. But, look, where is the demand? Who is hiring? What are they hiring for? And it's not just tech jobs. So let's say, and this is a little more longer term, but let's say I'm right about virtual reality and virtual conferences and so on. It's going to be boom time for artists, man.
Yeah.
Right. Especially anybody who can do digital art in 3D. Right. The people who are doing the video game stuff now, it's like gorgeous what they're building on video games. They're going to have now a whole other universe of business virtual reality. Companies who have lots and lots of money.
I was going to say, I bet that's going to pay really well because the amount of money that companies spend on conferences right now, if it shifts over there, that could be some really good money.
Yeah, I mean,
that's a cool business idea.
Yeah, I mean, the people who are doing After Effects and video and so on and web stuff for businesses, they're going to upskill, right? They can do. Pluralsight actually has a bunch of that kind of content as well.
Yeah, tons.
Unity game development. I've seen it on the Pluralsight platform. So there are going to be opportunities outside of tech as well. Right now, a lot of people are just in survival mode. I'll be a DoorDash driver. I'll get unemployment because nobody's hiring.
Yeah,
because of the uncertainty. But that's where the things we work on, the soft skills, come into play. Is if jobs are limited, if we're in a recession, what gives you the edge, right? What is it that differentiates you from everybody else? And it's not the tech skills, it's the soft skills, communication, speaking. And I know you do a ton of work on that and have a ton of great classes on it. And I have courses on it. And, that's maybe the hidden secret of Pluralsight's library is,
I think so.
Right? Because, everybody knows Pluralsight's about tech skills, but the professional development stuff on there is amazing.
Well, and not to pat ourselves on the back, but I was
Not
actually talking to my, right. There's more, but even just our topics, right? The soft skills. So I was talking to my 16-year-old daughter and she was like, so what is Pluralsight anyways? And I was like, well, it's a ton of programming courses and server and all the different technology stuff. And she's like, well, what do you do? And I said, well, mine are on, listening and communicating and presenting and working with different types of personalities and all that stuff. And she's like, oh, so you help people who learn those technical skills be able to get better jobs and do a better job and be more marketable. And I was like, can I record this right now? Because this is out of the mouths of babes, right? This is the essence. And this is why you said it's the hidden secret. I call it the hidden gem of Pluralsight. You're no longer competing at a technical level because the competition is fierce, right? When I was heavy into programming, I was never going to be the best programmer. I was never going to be the best any part of technology. And even if I was at my company, there was somebody in my town that was going to be better than me. But switch that over to when I became a hiring manager, I actually hired people based on their soft skills with the idea that they'll learn the technology, but this is someone that I want to work with. This is someone who I would be proud to send into a meeting with executives or customers.
And that is so important. And it doesn't matter if you're not going to be the best in the room or if you are in the best in the room, right? If you're the best in the room, those skills are going to let you leverage it, take it to the next level. That's going to let you speak at conferences and build amazing, websites or podcasts or, whatever it is you're doing, right? The soft skills are the multiplier and they last forever, right? We started out by talking about what are the things that are permanent changes, that people know how to cook, that people know how to work from home, that people, are conceiving of, home education. Well, everything you learn, every skill you gain, soft skills are permanent, right? They don't become obsolete. So
and they transfer between industries and companies and roles, like you carry them with you.
So a lot of college students come to me, say, what should I do for an internship, right? And my number one answer is you should spend the summer as a camp counselor at a resident summer camp. Because I did that, and I was like the only engineer. Well, no, there were 2 engineers on staff, right? 2 engineering students on staff. Very, very rare. But it turned out, and this I did not realize till years later, that being a summer camp counselor is the best management training that you can possibly get. It's better than you'll find in any college program, any professional program, anywhere. And the reason for it is simple. Management is about learning to deal with people, and to do that, you need feedback, right? And adults are terrible at giving feedback.
Kids aren't.
You got mass. But man, when you are a summer camp counselor, when you screw up with a kid or with a teenager, you know it right away. They let you know. It's so it is a intensive forced training in people skills, in management skills, in taking initiative. You're responsible for that group of kids and keeping them active and having the supplies and all this kind of stuff. It took me a long time to realize it, but the summers I spent 2.5 summers at summer camp as a counselor, had a greater impact on my career than anything that I learned in technology or anywhere else. And I use those skills every day. So that's what I tell the
the college kids.
I
got to tell you, my brother, I got laid off in 2006, and I was on what I thought was a fast track to like a real awesome corporate executive role. I'm sure I was completely disillusioned, but when I got laid off, my younger brother said, Jason, you need to go get a job as a salesman for a year. Go do sales for a year. Even if you don't like it, even if you don't want to do it for a career, but imagine all the things you would learn and the tactics and the strategies and the interpersonal skills. And I thought it was brilliant advice. I was too chicken to do it. And I was also on my own path that I didn't want to get off. But same idea is, where can you like really jump in with both feet into developing soft skills? Let me segue real quick, and I'm going to do a little bit of a commercial here. So I'm going to share my screen. Before we go into any of your stuff, Dan, I want to tell a funny story. I don't think I've told you this, but I have a really, really good friend here locally where I am, who's also a Pluralsight customer through his company. And I somehow mentioned your name in conversation. He's like, Dan Appleman, I have his books on my bookshelf. And you shot up from where I had you on a pedestal. You shot way up, because for someone who I really, really respect, to say that your books were his pivotal go-tos, I thought that was just really cool. So, but anyways, you've been with Pluralsight since when? When did you start your first course?
I can't remember the exact year. It's been a while.
You were before me. I was 2012.
Yeah, it was. It's scary how long it's been. I was at the second Pluralsight Author Summit when it was we all fit into one conference room.
Yep, I missed that one because my parents were in town and I only saw them once a year. And I thought, I'm not going to go. I mean, I'm a little more introverted, so I'm like, I don't want to go with all these people. I don't know them. They're all geeks and I'm the soft skills weirdo. So maybe you were 2011 or 2010.
It could be. That was, that's I don't know how well. So I actually started the soft skills on Pluralsight.
Awesome.
Right. That course, the career and survival strategies for technologists. This is the updated version. But I had written a Salesforce course, which it didn't do very well because it was early and
pretty early.
Yeah. And I wanted to do something that would be good for everyone. So I went to Fritz and said, hey, I want to do this course on career and survival strategies. They said, well, we've never done anything like that before. Sure, because it was easy to do.
That's how they did it back then.
That's the way they did it back then. You had an idea, and I did it, and it shot up to like number 2. It was hugely successful, and it struck a nerve, because we do not talk about this stuff enough as tech people.
No.
We're all in our little corner and we're sort of afraid to admit how we're feeling and what we're facing and so on.
Well, plus like what you were saying, today with this pandemic, a lot of people are experiencing this mega shaking up of the world and our careers and our future. Whereas back probably 2010, 2011, when you created this is what technologists went through. And we were always getting shaken up because there was always something new to learn, and you learn something and you start to master it. And then you hear about this newfangled thing that somebody invented. And oh, great, now I got to go learn that. And so what you did was you created a course for today's pandemic 10 years ago, really, right?
Right. Well, I lived through the dot-com bust, right, in 2002. So, we've now had 18 years where for technologists, there really is no unemployment. There hasn't been any, for 18 years. And a whole generation of tech people have grown up with the knowledge that, hey, software development, high paying, stable.
You'll always have a job.
And so on. But I lived through that period where I saw very talented tech friends unemployed for a year. So I know it's possible. And it's always been in the back of my mind, say, hey, be ready, be prepared, enjoy the good times, but and we don't know this one. We don't know what's going to happen in tech. This is, this recession has hit the restaurants, tourism, travel, and those who
I knew that would happen. That was obvious,
right? But we do not yet know to what degree it's going to impact tech. We just don't know.
I'll tell you, one of the most shocking layoffs that I've heard was I have some friends, so a DBA and a DevOps network guy, but I saw on Twitter a guy out of Boise, Idaho, who was an iOS mobile developer, are you kidding me? Like a year ago, there weren't enough mobile developers in the world. Like everybody's clamoring. I was just listening to the quarterly call on Pluralsight, and Aaron, I think it was Aaron who said that 80% of, I'm gonna not get this completely accurate, but anyways, you can go watch it. But 80% of the new users that have come in through the free April campaign came in through mobile. Like mobile's not going backwards. We need more mobile developers. And here's this guy in Boise, Idaho, who's an experienced mobile developer who's out on the street. I never thought I would hear about a mobile developer getting laid off. Not in the next 10 years.
Well, the disruption is beyond just the technology. So this mobile developer in Boise is laid off, okay? In the virtual world, he can find jobs outside of Boise. So
yeah, for sure.
Right? So there might be a greater pool of opportunities. On the other hand, we don't know the balance of demand versus supply right now, because a lot of people went into mobile for other things. So maybe what he needs to do, maybe this is the other big question mark, right? Let's say it hits tech. Let's say there is significant unemployment here as well, and there are no jobs. So yes, soft skills will allow you to get those jobs that exist, right? Looking for where demand is, if it shifts away from mobile developers, maybe it's shifted to something else, will help. But now you get into entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you can't find the job, you can always create it. And this is a really weird situation, because we are in, I have a course
There's a course for that.
Yeah. We are in what should be the golden age for entrepreneurship, right? It has never been easier or cheaper to start a business, right?
Oh yeah.
Never. The resources, I mean, a good example I have is when I co-founded A-Press, it cost us to create a book and publish and print a book. It cost us like $35,000. You'd have to budget, get the editing, first print run, and so on. The cost to publish a book today is less than $100.
Yeah, you got to put your time in. But aside from that, you go over to Amazon, upload your Word file, click, 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 and they do everything. They fulfill it, they ship it, they print it.
And you are instantly available at almost every bookstore and Amazon's worldwide within hours. So This is revolutionary. In software, every one of us can spin up unlimited virtual hardware resources, whatever we can afford, and it's cheap. Yeah. So you don't have to build server farms. You don't have to. So the resources to build companies are beyond anything. One of the things you're hearing a lot is people who are, there's a shortage of personal protective gear. People are making it at home on their 3D printers.
3D printers,
yeah. Right? So we might be looking at a whole future of micro manufacturing, right? And all the tech that will be involved in making that happen. No supply chain issues. You build it in your local town. Sites like Etsy, the crafting might be taken up to the next level. So that is something I also tell people who are struggling, they're laid off, they're struggling. I say, I'm not saying you should be an entrepreneur, because it's not easy. It's got its own world of craziness, right? But it should be on everybody's consideration list, because you may not have a choice, right? That may be the option. And it's scary, but it's not as scary as people think. I point out the statistic that back in the 1800s, like 80% of the country, 90% of the country were entrepreneurs. They're all individual farmers, small business people, shopkeepers. So there's nothing magical about being an entrepreneur. It's not a special skill or a talent. You don't have to be an Elon Musk or a Bill Gates. It's something that people all around the world, average, ordinary people, do all the time. And the fact that you have a small business that you're running out of your home doesn't make you any less of an entrepreneur than an Elon Musk, right? It's the same deal. So I encourage everyone not to become an entrepreneur, but to know enough about it so the option's there. right?
Yeah, my encouragement is dip your toes in, like whether you have a job or not. So the drum that I pound is revenue streams, having multiple revenue streams. And when I got laid off, and then I started my company Jibber Jobber, which is a CRM for job seekers. My whole idea was I want to make $100 a month, so that when I get laid off from my next job, they can't take away that $100. I just wanted to have a little bit more control of my finances than giving it all to my boss, or worse, to like Enron, to a company where that devastated tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people's lives because of ethics and integrity, right? And so, so kids come to me and they say, "Hey, how do I become an entrepreneur? Like, what do I learn? What books do I read? Should I go into an entrepreneur program in college?" My answer is, sell something right now.
Yes.
I don't care what you sell, but if you figure out how to sell something right now, you start to learn about these really big words that they talk about in college at a philosophical level. You learn about inventory. You learn about customer support, customer service, marketing, strategy, pricing, fulfillment issues. Like, you learn about so many things. And if nothing else, you might learn that you hate it, right? You might learn that you hate products, but you love services. You know, I wrote this book called 51 Alternatives to a Real Job. And really, it could have been a blog post with 51, one of them was walking dogs, okay? There's a guy or a lady in LA, and I know this doesn't sound like a lot of money for anyone in California, but outside of California, this is a big deal. This lady makes $5,000 a month walking people's dogs. Nobody goes to college to learn how to walk dogs, right? But she's figured out how to market her services, get clients. Hopefully she's figured out the cash issues, collections and stuff like that. Maybe she can hire some kids to go walk dogs for her. Here's the other one that just blew my mind, because while I was writing this book, I thought, I'm going to try some of these. I didn't do dog walking because I'm not into that. But I got spray paint, and some what are they called? The stamps or whatever. And I went out and started doing numbers on curbs. Mm-hmm. And it was easy money. So the best way to do it was to have my kids knock on the doors, and cute kids, it's hard to say no to that, as opposed to me. And then I'd go out with them and we'd spray paint the numbers, and it worked out really well. I was doing research on this, and I found a guy in Pennsylvania. I want to say Pittsburgh. He said he was making $80,000 a year spraying numbers on curbs.
Street performers. Some of them can make. Okay, I'm going to give right now job tip for right now. Okay. For those of you who are hairstylists and you're not making any money because your salon is closed, here's your business. Go out, get some masks, try to make, maybe get some personal protective gear, and reach out to your clients and say, I will come to your house. I will cut your hair outside while wearing personal protective gear. Right? I won't come into your house. It's a beautiful day. I'll set a sheet on the ground. You sit down there, and I will cut your hair outside. Charge double whatever you were charging before.
And people pay it, because people are going nuts.
I'll pay it. I'll pay it right now. Right? I need a haircut. You can sell.
Well, and you go to my house. Like, I don't even have to get in the car.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah. So you know what? And so there is a business opportunity right now. Very low risk. I'm not going to say you should do it if you obviously check your local laws. But my point is that this is what I would call a very, very, very low risk thing. And I would trust somebody who's wearing a face shield and a mask to cut my hair. Wash your hands thoroughly before you start. And we're outside, so there's no. It's going to be very, very safe to do that. And I'll do that before I'm going to go to a salon again where everybody's touching the same things. And
sure,
I'm in a room,
and like you said, you'll pay for it. You'll pay for the extra service.
Yeah.
My wife, she was a licensed cosmetologist. And when she was, I think she was out of school by this time, She did homebound hair care. So people who can't go out, and it's still within the licensing regulations that she could go do that. And she got tipped really well. Like it was a great, so what I found is we have problems, but every problem has opportunities. There are always opportunities, and some opportunities will help us, mentally like fill our time and have something to do. Other opportunities can create that $100 revenue stream. Other opportunities can be huge.
Can be learning opportunities, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you were talking, where do you get social skills? I mentioned summer camp. You mentioned sales. If you're on unemployment right now, get a volunteer gig, right?
Yeah.
Even if it's online, helping people or chatting with people or something like that, volunteers are a great opportunity to gain skills as well. You mentioned the diverse income streams, and this is important when thinking about entrepreneurship, because whenever you mention entrepreneurship, everybody's first reaction is, well, that's too risky.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And health insurance. I need health insurance. That's what I hear a lot.
True, but health insurance has gotten better, right? It's not great, but you do have the still have the ACA plans. The Obamacare plans are still out there, and depending on where you are, they suck to various degrees. And a lot of people are healthy enough so they can get individual insurance as well.
Yeah.
So that is a big problem, but a lot of them it's too risky, and it is risky, right? But being employed is risky too, and that's what you're seeing now.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I saw it early on in my career in 2006 when I got unemployed, not intentionally. Well, that was not fun.
In 2002, in the dot-com bust, my company Desaware dropped from, I think we had 8 people or so down to 2, and shut down the office and so on. And my income dropped I in hindsight, I should have applied for food stamps, right? But it never hit zero.
Yeah.
Right. It literally could not hit zero because there were just too many diverse income streams.
Yeah.
So it's a different kind of risk. So, I do encourage people to to consider the possibility, and maybe do a side gig or try it and see if it fits. I could not hold a real job anymore.
I couldn't either. I tried a couple years ago. It was hard. It was painful.
Yeah, having a boss, having someone.
Well, I went from being the boss, right? Like I own my own stuff. I have different product lines and I have different teams, and I manage them, and I enjoy it. I call the shots. I let people make decisions, but I'm involved in those decision conversations. And then I go in to a decent job. It was a 6-figure job, and it wasn't entry level or anything. And I'm multiple levels away from management. And many times I'm sitting there scratching my head saying, why are they doing this? This doesn't make sense. But I was so low on the totem pole that I was disregarded. Any of my ideas were disregarded. They weren't valued. That sucked. Honestly, I really like calling shots,
Well, I am a reluctant entrepreneur, right?
Yeah, that's how I started.
I was 8 years at this company where a lot of the time I was sort of saying, why are they don't know what they're doing, right? They don't know what they're doing. And then I started my own company and I realized we don't know what we're doing, right? And that's the truism. And this as a CEO as well as I do. We're all making it up as we go along.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. I do not encourage people to take courses on entrepreneurship. I do not encourage people to, you learn from the people who are doing it, right?
Yeah. Or by doing it.
But you especially learn by doing it, right?
Yeah.
I learned by doing it. So, accounting, I do my own books. How did I learn to do my own books? I bought a piece of software that did accounting, and I read the instructions.
Yeah.
And I just did what they said to do. And now it's easy.
Well, I mean, when I think about creating Pluralsight courses, how did I learn? What course did I take to create a course? Well, before Pluralsight, I created a DVD. I did courses, and learned how I read articles and talked to people and pieced it all together to figure out how to create a high quality DVD, how to buy them, and have the best profit margin. So everything that I've done in my business, none of it has been, I took a course on that. A lot of it has been, here's an idea. Where am I going to learn? What sources am I going to learn from? And then one day you just sit down and you start. You don't know where you're going to end up. You know where you hope to end up, but you don't know how you're going to get there, right? But after a while, you gain a level of expertise in it.
Let me tell you how crazy Desaware was. My first company, my first real company. I was working on the Visual Basic beta, right? And the Visual Basic was a language, for those who aren't familiar, that changed the world of programming. And I had written this custom control, this component, and Microsoft was planning to do a component marketplace. So I get a call from somebody at Microsoft who saw my component, just the prototype, the trial, and said, hey, this is great. We want to promote this at our next meeting with the salespeople or something like that. Can you send me your company info? Right. I had built this thing, and I sort of had in mind to sell it, but I did not have a company, did not have a company name. I did not have a letterhead. I did have nothing. So on April 1st, 1991.
Oh yeah, those are the good old days.
Right. At the previous day, I had gotten that request for, please send me your official stuff. That morning, I ran down to City Hall. I got my fictitious business name. I called Pac Bell. I got a phone line and I got a number reserved. I went to the bank and I got a bank account, and I got home and I created a very simple logo and letterhead and packaged it. And that evening I sent out this trial version from this brand new company.
It looked formal,
I created
though.
In one day. It was just like from decision to functioning in one day. And, and that's Silicon Valley crazy, right?
Yeah.
We do that.
Well, here's the problem. A lot of people get stuck in the analysis paralysis mode, and they're like, well, okay, in order to have a business, I need to have a business plan. You can spend months and years on a business. I've talked to people who have spent years on a business plan. They never get around to doing it. You created your business before you had any of those formal things. One of the things I say to people is just do something.
Just
you got to do something. And maybe I have a concept that I call, this isn't rocket science, and I'm sure someone else has called it this, but I call pre-marketing. So when I wrote my first book, I spent months on these user groups online with people that were LinkedIn nerds. And I was an active participant, but I got to the point where I started saying, hey, I'm working on a book and it should be out on this date. Here's the specific topic I'm talking about. I'd love to get quotes. Can I get quotes from anybody and thoughts? And I want to interview you. And I did this over a few months. Now, what happened was when the book rolled out, I had probably 100 people who immediately went out to LinkedIn and their own blog and wherever and started marketing it for me, because I did pre-marketing. Like before I even had anything to sell, I was developing a group of people who would buy it and who would become evangelists, right? Entrepreneurs got to be scrappy. And if you're coming out of corporate America and you want to be an entrepreneur the way your business was run, you got to realize that the early stages of every single business has a story like what Dan just shared, right? There's crazy stories where it's like, you did that as a founder? Holy cow, I didn't know that, because right now we're polished.
I'm going to tell you the story of my first book, okay? Because I did not do any of what you just described, right? But I came from the different place, which is, where is the need, right?
Mm-hmm. Which is a good question.
Right? So I loved Visual Basic. I was, on the beta. I thought this was going to revolutionize software, which was one of those rare cases where I had foresight. And but I knew you could call Windows API functions from it. But all of the Windows API documentation was written for C++ programmers. So I said, I need documentation for Visual Basic programmers to call Windows API functions directly. And since I was an experienced Windows programmer in C++, I said, I can write this. So this is the book I need. This is the book everybody needs. So I'm going to write it. So I was wandering in a conference, this Windows OS 2 conferences. This was shortly after I started Desware, and I was like, how am I going to survive? Where am I going to get money? And I wandered this booth, this woman standing there alone from Ziff Davis Press. And I said, hey, how would I go about writing a book? And she said, well, what did you have in mind? So I said, well, I have this vision. And she said, I love that. I'm the publisher. Christy something. I can't remember her name. I'd have to look it up. It's been a long time. I'm the publisher. She was the publisher standing in the booth there. He said, send me the outline. I will send you a contract. So I had a contract. I spent 9 months writing this book, and I knew it was going to be good because about halfway through it, I started using it.
Yeah.
Right.
Nice.
In my own work, I was actually using the book I had just written as the reference for my book. I kept looking back, saying, what did I write there? Oh, that's how I do it. So the book launches, and this is the height of the computer book craze, right? Mm-hmm. This is the time where there was no internet yet, right? So every bookstore had like 50% of every bookstore was computer books. And the way a computer book would normally ship is they would sell 5,000 copies, and they'd put 2 copies in every bookstore, and that would be it. End of story, right? And the author would basically make back their advance. So a couple months go by, and I get a call from my publisher. They say, Dan, say, what? Something weird is happening. I say, what? They're reordering your book, right? So I had struck a nerve. I had struck an area of deep need. That book went on to sell over 90,000 copies.
Wow.
In the computer, even in the computer book world, is epic bestseller. And it went on to the Win32 book, which sold even more. And those are the books that your friend had on their shelf.
So let me ask you a question. I don't know if you're comfortable answering this. Did you made money off the book?
Oh yeah.
The first book.
Yeah.
Like make a living money?
Yeah.
Yeah, you made good money.
Well, I mean, look, I'm in Silicon Valley and I own my house.
Right.
And the reason that happened was because early on in my career, I was suddenly seeing disposable income that I could then save and pay down mortgages and do things like that. Yes, it was huge. But understand, we're not talking millions of dollars or anything like that. We're talking an extra, $10,000 a quarter or $20,000 a quarter. But back when houses cost,
which for an author, I'll tell everybody, is phenomenal. Like it's unreal.
Oh yeah,
generally,
yeah.
For the normal human author.
Yeah, books, especially nowadays. Unless you're a Stephen King, you're not making that. I'm not making that kind of money now on my Apex book.
Right.
But back then, to get an extra $10,000 a quarter, when my first condo cost $125,000, right?
Pretty awesome.
That was a game changer.
So okay, part 2, because I had a similar experience. I was told I wouldn't make any money, and my first big royalty was $8,000, and my bank freaked out. They're like, "You actually never have money in your account." And so we have to hold this money for 3 days. And I was like, that's not possible, because I'm flattered, but I need that money yesterday. Right. So, and that's the highest I ever made was $8,000. But the value I got from having a book was way beyond any of the royalties that I ever created. So let's switch over. And I talk about this a lot in personal branding. I believe that everybody has expertise in something. Even the receptionist who's been doing it for 40 years, and a lot of people disregard secretaries and receptionists. I bet they could write at least one solid book on something that is like, wow, that was a fascinating read, right? Everybody has a degree of expertise in something. And I tell people books are amazing personal branding tools. So I'll tell you what happened after my book, and then I want to hear what happened after yours for your career, right? Because we're talking today about what we can do to enhance our career and provide some stability and weather things like what's happening right now. So I wrote my book very reluctantly. I had a contract for months and months before I finally figured out I had to do it. And then I called my publisher and I said, okay, manuscript's coming in 2 weeks. Like I seriously buckled down. The royalties were fine. Like it was cool and it was fun. I don't disregard that at all. But then I started getting press. Like I started getting phone calls from newspaper, TV, and radio. And these were places I had been begging to get into. And all of a sudden, they're actually finally coming to me. And then this girl emails me and says, we have this conference. It was ACG, which is the Association Capital Growth. Anyways, it's a bunch of rich people, really. And they said, we need you to come to our conference. They weren't even asking if I was available. They're like, you have to be there. And by the way, it was on a panel, which means you don't have to prepare a keynote or anything like that. I got paid $5,000 to sit on a panel. And that's when my professional speaking career started. I started traveling around the country and once to Europe. So that made me an international speaker. $5,000 a pop to go in and do a 45-minute deal. I told people, I mean, I don't know the numbers, but I'm guessing I made more than drug dealers, not the heavy drug dealers, but for a 45-minute gig to make $5,000. I mean, granted, there's travel time and all that stuff, but I was on stage for an hour, and I walked out with $5,000. That stuff led to more publicity. It helped me keep introduce Jibber Jobber around the country in person, right? And next thing you know, I remember the day I was sitting under a tree. It was in the summer. I was by my house on the road in my car, coming from a lunch or something, and I was talking to Megan. I don't know if you remember Megan at Pluralsight. She was one of the first editors or whatever. And she was like, we want you to come do courses. And I was like, I don't want to do courses. Like, and all the details of it, I was like, this doesn't sound fun. It doesn't sound financially rewarding, which I'll tell everybody right now, it has been a lot of fun and it has been very financially rewarding. But all of that came from having my first book. But I'll be honest with you, my first book came because I dipped my toes into the entrepreneurial water. I tried something. I threw spaghetti on the wall and some of it stuck and some of it didn't. And then the book was a piece of spaghetti. And then I had a second book, which didn't do nearly as well financially, but it changed my brand from job seeker guy, because my first book was on LinkedIn, to the second one was on Facebook. That didn't sell well at all, but it shifted me to social media expert, which was really interesting. So all these straps of spaghetti led to where I am now.
So
go ahead.
What we're talking here is how do you leverage skills? And I gave you an example of a hairstylist pivoting their skill from working in a salon to potentially working at home. So, in my case, I've been a real believer in leveraging tech skills multiple ways, right? So, for example, I would learn something in technology. I would use it on a product. I would use it in a book. I would use it in articles, and then I would speak about it at conferences. And you're absolutely right. One of the things that books do is, for some reason, they still give people enormous credibility.
So, credibility as an expert.
They're an author. They wrote a book. They must be an expert. There's something about a book. I leveraged the fact that I was working in the Visual Basic field, and I had a book on it. And when Fawcett Technical Publications started a conference, I asked, I can't remember, but it was sort of a no-brainer, of course. So I spoke at the first VBITS conference. And next thing you know, I was on the speaker circuit. And I spent a lot of years, like 15 years, maybe 20 years, a lot of years on the speaker circuit, which meant every year during conference season, I'd travel all over the world. I've spoken to Australia, Japan, Europe.
And were you paid for all those? These are all paid gigs?
They were paid gigs, but they never paid enough, really. I mean, they were break even at best, right? Mm-hmm. But in my mind, they did two things. First of all, they gave me an excuse to travel, and I love traveling. Yeah. And so, I would always build on extra vacation and tourist time wherever I was going. And they were social, right? These were my friends, all the other speakers and so on. It was fun. And I believe in fun, right? Career should be fun. So that was fun. And it also helped sell books and products. So it was marketing. Mm-hmm. So it was all, as you say, it's all a synergy. And when I got into the Salesforce world, I drifted away from the Visual Basic, sort of went away. It wasn't fun anymore. But I sort of discovered the Salesforce world, and I sort of played the same script, right? I was learning this technology, and in my world, if I learn something, I got to teach it, because that's just, I love doing that. So I wrote this book on Apex, and again, that became very successful because it was the first and only book on Apex at the time, and I'm still keeping it up to date. So it's, if you want to learn to be a advanced Salesforce developer, a real Salesforce developer, and you have other programming skills, then my book, you can go to advancedapex.com and read about it. That's the book designed to do that. It's the book that I wish I had had, right? So, there are lots of ways for
back to identifying your own.
Sorry, you're breaking up a little.
I said going back to identifying your own needs, like identify your needs.
Exactly right. So at 2011 or something like that, Pluralsight wanted to get into Salesforce. It was their first of several aborted attempts until recently. Now they're really into Salesforce in a big way, thanks a lot to the play-by-plays that Don Robbins is doing. And I have a few Pluralsight courses on Salesforce as well. But at the time, it was their first attempt, and Aaron Skonard was at Dreamforce. So he recruited me personally, and it was the same kind of deal. It's sort of like, okay, this guy seems for real, and what have I got to lose? Let's give it a shot. And that first course was really hard to put together, because I was figuring things out. But now I have a lot more skills. I can edit in Camtasia like crazy. I know how to do the audio, and it's much, much easier to do a course than. The big discovery I had is my first course, I was trying to do like a talk, which is like, now we're just sort of speaking and extemporaneously. But I realized that I'm an author, I'm a writer. And my second course I scripted, and it changed it. It made it so much easier, because instead of this endless editing to tweak everything, it's like, okay, at least it's coming out of my mouth the way I want it. So
yeah, I went through that transition. I wish you would have pounded that in my head earlier, because it wasn't until my last 5 or so courses that I really got into scripting.
And boy, does it make the updating easier, doesn't it?
Everything makes the recording is so fast, and the editing is so fast, and the stress level is low. Because if my dog, not my dog, but my neighbor's dog, would always bark or howl when a siren was anywhere within the whole state of where I live. And it was like, I'd have to pause and then try to remember what I was talking about. And now I don't even care about those interruptions anymore. Hey, let's wrap this up, man. This has been fun. I love at conferences, you, the Pluralsight conferences that we've been to. If you're in a session, or if you're running a session, I love being in there, because I like the way you think. You're very systemic and process oriented, and I appreciate that. I will wholeheartedly endorse your courses. So on Pluralsight, the best way to find any of Dan's stuff is to go to Google. Really, the Google has a good search engine, right? So if you type Pluralsight Appleman, then you will find the list of Dan's courses. There's 23 of them. And some of them are on the soft skill professional dev level, a lot of career stuff, thinking about your career. This is stuff that if I were in high school, I would have eaten this up. I would have been enthralled with this. I've always been enthralled with career conversations, and how do people afford their lifestyle, and how do people plan for retirement. As a young kid, I thought about that stuff. And then of course you have your technical stuff, right? So you have the Salesforce stuff, and I think you have some non-Salesforce.
Yeah, I do have some data visualization. I'm really fascinated by that.
That's right.
I've got one course, Objectivity and Data Visualization, that I think is very timely, because it's all about how people lie with charts, and how you can look at a chart and really sort of dig a little bit deeper and see where the truth may lie. Yeah.
In my statistics class in college, the book, did you take statistics in college? Do you remember?
I did. I think I slept through most of them.
So there was a book that we had to buy. It was a little tiny book. It was called Statistics, and it was a brilliant book. So the tabs that I have open is the future of technology careers, which we career and survival strategies for technologists. These is that you would recommend. Like if someone's coming in here panicked about their careers right now, I'm guessing these are the two that you would say.
Career and survival strategies for technologists, future of technology careers to help see where to pivot, how to. It doesn't tell you what to do. It tells you how to think about the future and how to evaluate different career paths.
Right.
And hidden secrets of technology careers are sort of all the things I wish I'd known when I started. And that's where you're going to find a section on layoffs and how to deal with layoffs and why companies lay people off and things like that.
What I learned in 2006 was that layoffs and all that stuff is part of the way it is now. Like I grew up in the olden days looking at my dad's career thinking, okay, you go out, you get out of school, you have a job for 30 or 40 years and you retire with a pension and all that. And then I started having friends that were getting laid off. And I remember a friend of mine said, getting laid off is harder than getting fired. And I didn't understand that. I've never been fired, so I still don't know, but I got laid off and it sucked pretty bad. And I felt like, I had done stuff wrong and this was going to be a mark against me. And what I realized was that this is just how it is. And nowadays, if you have gaps on your resume, people don't really care like they did in the 80s or 90s. Like it's not a red flag anymore because we transition so often.
Right. Well, in Hidden Secrets, especially the section on layoffs, there's a real important discussion about how to figure out whether how to assess the safety and security of your own job, thinking both about your role, your managers, how your company's doing, how to look at that. So, that's the first step, especially for tech people who are wondering what's going to happen to me. The section on layoffs in his Hidden Secrets of Technology Careers, I think, will be particularly valuable.
I love that. Of course, the 30 million people who've applied for unemployment don't need to watch that part. But for planning for the rest of your career, it sounds like a great assessment. And then the last one I'll recommend, any of your courses I would recommend, but these were the ones we had open, was So You Want to Be an Entrepreneur. And like you said, it's not for everybody. It's not easy. But what I've found is the security, we used to talk about job security back in the 1900s. Nobody's saying that phrase anymore. I talk about income security, and my income security has come from having multiple revenue streams. And last night, my wife and I were chatting in bed, and she's like, I really like where we're at right now. Like, this is cool and it's fun. And it is cool and fun, but I'm going to tell you what, 12 years ago, it wasn't. 14 years ago, it wasn't. And it was hard. And that story of you rushing off to the city hall to go get your business set up and then get your stuff printed and stuff like that, like that's pretty intense. And if someone wants to be a real entrepreneur and develop revenue streams, you're going to scrap. You're going to do something at 2 a.m. If you want a rental, you're going to be at your rental at 2 a.m. fixing something.
You're going to do things you didn't think you knew you could do, but you can do them.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, 2 months or 2 years or 20 years down the road, you are going to be so thankful that you planted those seeds and grew those revenue streams. It's a beautiful thing. So anyways, Dan, thanks, man. This has been a lot of fun. I appreciate the conversation. You want to have any parting words?
No, man, this has been an absolute blast. And, hopefully we'll meet again in person at the next Pluralsight Summit
I hope so.
That becomes an in-person, or if not that, a really cool virtual experience.
Sounds good. Hey, Dan, thank you. Good luck to everybody out there.
Good luck, everyone.